Hi, I'm Pastor Jonathan Newman. Today we're answering the question, is there anything biblical about the practice of giving something up for Lent? Now, to answer that question, it would probably be helpful, first of all, to talk a little bit about what Lent is. Lent is a season of the church year. It's a time of the year when we focus especially on the seriousness of our sins, and we take a close look at the events in Jesus' life leading up to his crucifixion. Now, Lent initially started as a time period of 40 days where newcomers to the Christian church would examine themselves and prepare themselves for entrance into full church membership. It was a time period of 40 days leading up to Easter, which was at that time the time when newcomers to the faith would be baptized and would have their first communion. Now, eventually the practice associated with this time of 40 days of things like fasting, things like increased charity, eventually those practices spread to the entire church and not just to those who were new to the faith. And really, this matter of giving something up for Lent is just an extension, or perhaps we might say a modification of those things, of fasting and of charity. If you've heard of anyone giving something up for Lent, you've probably heard it as things like giving up desserts or sweets for the season of Lent. Now, this practice itself doesn't have any example or command from the Bible. In fact, the season of Lent itself is not talked about in the Bible. It's simply something that the church does so that we can focus on these truths and do it regularly. So in that sense, there isn't anything biblical about this practice. But Jesus does talk about fasting, and he does talk about giving charity. But he doesn't say that they are things which are commanded for Christians to carry out at a certain time of the year or even in a certain way. They are things that are done as fruits of faith, things done so that Christians can focus more on what God has to say. And so in that sense, there is something biblical about it. And so it's neither wrong nor right to give something up for Lent. We simply want to examine the motivation for doing it and the positive benefits that we can get from engaging in such a practice. Thanks for that question. It's a good question. I appreciate all of your questions. If you have questions that you would like to have answered, please put them in the comments below or send me an email at pastorjonathannewman@gmail.com. I'll see you next week.